Can't stress enough the unusual nature of that. Now, folks, joining us right now to discuss it and give some insight is a member of Marin, Barrett, and Murphy, criminal defense attorneys, 50 years combined Rhode Island criminal defense experience. Your fight becomes theirs, full weight of the firm, every case. You can call them at 401-228-8271. I did share their Facebook page. It's Marin, Barrett, and Murphy Law Firm. And joining us from there is, and it's her first time appearing on the program, is Stefanie Murphy. Good afternoon, Stefanie.
Hi, John. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Very well. Take us through. I'm anxious to hear your thoughts on this, particularly this state police case.
Well, first of all, my heart goes out to the victim and the family and everything that they were going through, to not only have to live through losing a loved one, but then have, the loved one's death posted on social media. My heart goes out to them. But in regards to what happened on that night, although, the two state police troopers were just fired today, I think it's been kind of a long-term investigation. But the Rhode Island State Police and any police officers, they definitely have a responsibility to maintain the confidentiality of any photos or videos or anything that's part of an investigation in any car accident, in any case that they're involved in. And that didn't happen in this case. Rhode Island has general laws that talk about this, such as Rhode Island General Law 1167.1-13. And additionally, Rhode Island also has other laws about internet service providers and what can be disclosed on the internet about certain information. So all those laws were basically violated when, anybody posted any confidential information in regards to this accident onto the internet. There's obviously a breach of the police officer's duty to keep those videos and information related to the death private. And as the firing of the two state police troopers, it's apparent that they did not follow that mandate. So the entire case is tragic, and the fact that the family had to relive everything that happened to their loved ones on the internet and still having to deal with that, that's just beyond words at this point.
Stefanie, would you agree with me? It's extraordinary, unusual. I mean, we've seen some cases where the state police and even, Providence police, whoever it may be, they try to terminate someone. But I can't recall the last time. I mean, there was some high profile examples where maybe something happened with a prisoner in a cell block, but the extraordinary, unusual nature of two troopers fired for any behavior, but especially this behavior.
Yeah, I think it speaks to, the mandates that weren't followed by these two troopers. And I give a lot of credit to the state police for investigating this and reaching the conclusion that they did. I'm sure they did a thorough job in investigating everyone's part in it. And this is what they feel like is the appropriate sanction for what was done. So I do think it's very unusual that this is what's happening and they're not, suspended or anything like that, and that they're, actually let go.
What about the family? The state's essentially acknowledging that the troopers were in the wrong. They just terminated them. I can't recall the last time, and I've been on the phone with law enforcement all morning. No one can remember when two police, let alone the 2025 nature of that. It's social media tied in. But what about the family? Could the state maybe then be on the hook to essentially try to do something to reconcile the differences and the feeling that the family has?
I mean, absolutely. That's kind of what the civil side is for. So the state police did their investigation. They reached their conclusion. That's independent of anything that on the civil side of it. But John, I don't know if you're aware of, there was a California case from 2004, and it's kind of a similar set of facts where the victim in this case was 18 and she was speeding in her father's car, and she crashed into a toll booth at the time, and she was killed instantly. She was killed on scene. But the scene was so gruesome that even the family didn't even want to see the body or watch the video or anything like that. But officers on scene took pictures of this deceased girl, and it got leaked to social media. And all of a sudden, this victim who is deceased became, a social meme that was being passed around the internet. And in California, it did go on a civil case, and courts determined that the officers are not protected by the First Amendment right, and that this kind of information is not all right to disseminate to the public. And they actually reached a $2 million settlement for breach of privacy and pain and suffering in California. So that was a case that I was able to, that actually is talked about in law school in some cases. And I know it is being studied right now in law school, but that's a similar set of facts, a little bit older in time, but those were pictures that were disseminated. So that's kind of similar to kind of something that could happen in civil court.
Folks, again, we're speaking with Stefanie Murphy. She's an attorney, Marin, Barrett, and Murphy. Now, also, Stefanie, just the other night, we had a group of individuals, citizens at the Rhode Island State House, and number one, they wanted to protest the governor's speech. And then you also had independent media and traditional media that wanted to go in and film and kind of cover the speech. Number one, the individuals that went up there were escorted out of the State House area. And then number two, the governor's people say, oh, it was a miscommunication that people were not allowed in. What's your take on those two examples?
Well, if you think that if there's any place, in the state where people have their First Amendment rights to express themselves, it would be at the State House. So I think it's a very, very fine line. I understand how these rights need to be protected and everyone has that right. But at the same time, there's also the obligation for business to go on as normal and not to interrupt the course of business. But while protesters have the right to demonstrate inside the Rhode Island State House, I do believe that under the law, what they do and their activities can be regulated. And I know there's been some cases in Rhode Island in similar situations. But you would think if there's anywhere where protesters or anyone who wanted to voice their opinion, that they should be heard at the State House. So I do think the State House is a lot different of a place than, let's say, another example in town or something like that. So I think it's a very, very fine line. It's an important line to, allow people their First Amendment right, which is such an incredible right that everyone has.
Folks, again, we're speaking with Stefanie Murphy, and now this is something I've dubbed Stev Selection. Stefanie Murphy, is there a story that you saw in the news recently that kind of jumped out at you that you feel legally people should be aware of?
Well, I do a lot of criminal law. And so I think that dual trial is going on in Kent County right now is absolutely a fascinating case. I know all the attorneys involved. And I was able to watch part of the closing arguments today. But I do think that's a really fascinating case for a variety of reasons. Most importantly, because there are two different defendants being tried with two different juries at the same time. So I've been fascinated by that. In all honesty, it's been for the last 2 weeks. And I've been keeping an eye on that. So I find that very interesting.
That's the Carbuncle Pond situation, two different individuals. Why is that? We've seen... I go back to Operation Plunderdome. You had all the defendants, but they were all on trial at the same time, and then they just had the one jury. Why the unusual nature of this, of the two juries?
Welcome to the Waiverhood.
The Wayfair vibe at our place is Western.
Well, in terms of this, I think that, if the attorneys wanted to file a motion to sever and do two different trials, I'm not sure if they did in this case, but I do feel like these defendants who are kind of blaming each other, in all honesty, do have a right to separate trials. So typically that would be done with two separate trials and two separate juries. But because most of the witnesses, I think there was maybe 27 or 28 witnesses and over 100 exhibits, they were done at the same time. And what the judge did is when one witness was only prevalent to one of the defendants, the other jurors would step out.
Folks, again, it's Stefanie Murphy. You can call Stefanie 401-228-8271 if you'd like to speak to her regarding some kind of a legal dilemma or situation that you're in. Stefanie, great job. Great to talk to you, and we'll talk to you again.
Thanks, John. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
All right, folks, there it is. Stefanie Murphy, Marin, Barrett, and Murphy. Call them 401-228-8271. And again, you can find them on Facebook. Well, right now it is 1:21. And I want to once again emphasize